practical guidance coming from a guy who created like a $1 empire out of was it out of your garage? I mean, how does this story go?
Yeah, it was my garage.
It was your actual physical garage. Does anybody do anything?
It started out with my garage, and then the weather got a little chilly, and so I had 2 daughters at the time, and I put one of them in with the other one and turned her bedroom into my lab. And now, you weren't using chemicals in that lab. Oh no, but
soldering iron.
Soldering iron, a lot of soldering iron, lead fumes till the cows come home. Yeah, and they both claim that it was their bedroom that turned into the lab.
Don't answer it. Let them both take that.
And I actually don't remember which was which. Actually.
That's funny. I'm sure whenever you're interviewed, people want to know about the great success and the downfalls, but I genuinely want to hear like a low point in your Atari time, like a low moment there, because
Summer of 1974, we had a game called Grand Track, and it was a cool game, but Atari never had venture capital. The company started with $250, and we got no investment until we were about 40 million in sales. So,
when you didn't need it, or did you need it?
Well, of course we needed it, but everybody thought that the game business was a silly business. I mean, trust me, it wasn't from lack of trying. But we designed into this product a special chip. And because we hadn't paid our bill on time, they stopped the production on it. And it was 6 weeks to get the production line back started. Well, our business model was all about building games, shipping them very quickly and collecting the money so that we could pay our payroll. And that was our business model.
Well, it seems pretty logical.
It seemed pretty logical. So if all of a sudden you go for 6 weeks and it turned into 2 months, then it turned into a little bit more, it was really a problem.
How many people were working with the company at that point?
Oh, probably 400.
400 people that you're kind of on the hook for, and all of a sudden there's a cash gap.
And so all of a sudden you started getting debt collections from bills you hadn't paid, and we wouldn't defend, and so they'd get a judgment. And so what we did is we opened several bank accounts in several states, and so we kept shoveling what little money we had around from bank
So there's like the robber barons and then the arcade barons. You were like one of the arcade barons.
Well, I wasn't going to let them shut me down. I went to all of them and I said, okay, give me terms. I'll pay you off in 12 months. And if you allow me to do that, you'll be my preferred vendor. And if you continue to give me a bad time, I will try as hard as I can to never pay you.
Tell me then, once you were in the chips, what's the biggest investment of money that, didn't come back at you? Did you ever spend $10 million in an area and that 10 million just, whoops, that was just a write-off? Or?
Oh yeah, it was my robotics company.
The robotics company.
Yeah. I loved that thing so much. I could just see that every household needed to have a little robot running around doing interesting
You may still be right.
Oh yeah, I was just too soon. The technology was not ready yet. I mean, we were basing it on the IBM PC motherboards. We were actually trying to write a new operating system, multitasking, because you needed to have all these things going. But the real problem that killed us was static electricity, because the things rolling around would pick up static electricity. There'd be a short...
Rubber? You couldn't do rubber?
Oh, no, you could do all that, but static electricity kind of goes through everything. And then there'd be a spark across the bearings. It'd reset the computer, and all of a sudden you had a 40-pound guided missile going in all kinds of crazy places. You just had these visions of this robot heading towards a stairwell, not having the sensors working and tumbling down on somebody.
Yeah, killing grandma.
Yeah, killing grandma, mowing the baby.
Yeah, don't mow the baby. So did it just peter out, or was we have to abandon it decision?
It was we have to abandon it decision, because I couldn't put any more money into it, and we got an offer to sell pieces of the technology to a couple of other companies, so that I got a little bit out of it, and that's it.
Talk about the licensing with different companies for content for Atari. You know what I mean? I do. I'm an actor, and I do voiceovers for different movies, different video games. But sometimes Lord of the Rings movie comes out, they do a Lord of the Rings video game, and I do it. And I wonder about how the game makers and the licensors or whatever, the content owners. I'm just wondering what your reaction.
I didn't license a single property when I was running Atari.
Was it too early in the?
I just felt
game
that
spectrum?
it didn't help us at the time because it wasn't marketing as much as it was pushing. Now, after I sold it to Warner, they licensed a lot, and that's what led to the ET thing. It was really a bad license that sort of started this whole hairy ball rolling.
I'm sure
down
you've talked
the
about the ET thing.
Oh yeah.
Until it's
I mean, that was the big conundrum.
I wonder if it's as big. I talk to people now in this industry, and we've gone to a bunch of different places, and that episode is the gargantuan. I mean, does it deserve to be have this great legend?
It was such a massive screw up on the part of management, and a lot of people put it off onto Howard, and he was just an innocent pawn in a diabolical game.
Diabolical, not incompetent.
Well, there's an old saying: one should never ascribe to malice which can be ascribed to inadvertence. But
in this case, it can.
In this case, they weren't thinking, or there's more to the story that will never be known.
Mm. So, but it's in a place in your mind that's you're comfortable. Like that's a good lesson learned for the industry. Maybe it's good for the industry that happens.
Well,
because
I think what happens is that you want to have sound business practices, whatever you do, and games associated with a good movie. There's certain movies that want to be a game. And sometimes
you can't even tell sometimes because it's a comic book, it's a movie, it's a game, it's a TV show, it's a board game, it's something your kids are playing out in the sandbox, you just don't even know.
But some of them, there's kind of a movie and then there's a game tacked on the left corner.
Right.
And I always think, that's disappointing because if you love Harry Potter, mm-hmm. then you want something that is consistent to the characters and the actions and what have you.
Well, we just had a conversation with someone who, when they were in the hospital and couldn't move, a movie's at a certain point, and there's an extended stay. It's going to be a long recovery. That movies kind of got tiresome, and somebody put a game in their hand, and World of Warcraft, and she described that the artist had depicted where the character throws away a necklace, and it just struck her, and her entire life changed, and she became an expert. Beautiful girl became an expert in this world. So story, emotions, communicating emotions. Can you think in Atari, like, do we feel that? Do you feel the initial steps of that?
The problem we had in those early days is the technology was so hard. We had to really focus on short form games primarily. In short form games, you don't really have enough time for character development and story, and the most you could do is deal with that's evil, you're good, vanquish evil. That's about as much dialogue as you're okay.
That's all right. Kill the asteroids or whatever.
Done,
Yeah. Do you like the stories that game designers are telling now?
Some yes, some no. Some of them are absolutely tedious. Others are engaging and fun, just like a movie. There's some really dreadful movies out there, and there's some wonderful ones. I like puzzle games. Like I've been playing Portal, and I really like Portal because it's in this constrained world in which you have these weird tools, and now you have to solve puzzles of how you deal with gravity and constructs and various things. I love that stuff.
You don't have to,
Yeah. Well, like I say, Stealth and Guile, that's me.
That's you. And puzzle, yeah, wow. So you had within the Atari family this idea that you're not going to hurt human beings, an icon of a human being. Have you taken a kind of hard and fast stance about the way some of the Grand Theft Auto and some of the things that are clearly gratuitous violence? Do you have a philosophical approach, an emotional approach? How do you relate yourself to that?
Well, early on with Atari, there was a lot of controversy about video games. People didn't want their kids spending 24/7 playing games, and so there was a lot of pushback anyway. And I felt that we didn't need to race to the bottom in order to create a good business model. And so that's the reason I said, let's just not deal with that as an added problem. Subsequently, I mean, I love Doom, and clearly massively.
The morality of Doom is internally sort of right.
Yeah, because, you know, it's clearly a fantasy construct. You know, you're killing bad zombie, alien, nightmare people, which should be dead. And
well, some of them have families, I suppose.
no, it's very clear they don't have.
They don't have families. Yeah,
No, they were born in the bowels of a machine. But I do have a problem with Grand Theft Auto. I feel like it celebrates antisocial behavior and the sorts of things that society, you know, is not helped by. Would I ban it? Of course not. But would I alert parents to say, you know, there are better things you can do? My dad, he would say, you can swim in a cesspool, but if you do, you're going to swallow some.
Yeah. Some cess.
Yeah, some cess. Exactly.
Well, all right. So you're basically saying, you know, exercise good judgment and make sure that you're aware of what it is that you're consuming and that kind of thing. But you don't have a blanket kind of thing that you think should be legislated. You don't think?
Absolutely not. I think that adults should be responsible. I think that we do have a responsibility to our children. I don't think I have responsibility towards your children, but I think I should.
My kids are great.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I've got 8 kids. And so I have always felt that one of the things that parents should do is try to raise great human beings that are sensitive and loving and enthusiastic. Because if you really look at the most valuable characteristic that anybody has, it's enthusiasm. I've got a book out called Finding the Next Steve Jobs. It's really about how do you hire really good creative people and how are you structuring your life. And my advice is very simple. Don't hire dead people. And
well, a lot of these people that I've been coming across learning about video games is this is a place where they were allowed to let their passion grow. That there's a lot of places in society where they just don't fit, but this is a blossoming space for them.
No question about it. And, you know, one of the other nice things about video games, not only just allowing people who can't be the quarterback on the football team, but also there are whole leagues of people who are quadriplegic, paraplegic. There's one guy that I've heard of. He basically cannot move his arms and legs, and he plays video games based on sensors connected to his eyebrows.
Wow.
You know, that's just really cool, you know?
Wow, yeah.
And so otherwise, he would have no way to compete in the world. And now he's enabled.
Do you think the state of play for all video game companies is fair? Do you know what I mean? Like you go to E3 and you walk in and it's overwhelming. You know, some games are costing $80 million or more, $100 million to make a game, and it takes them 3 years and it's employing hundreds, if not thousands of people. And what's your sense of the kind of health of the industry?
The health of the industry could not be better. And understand that there's always the place for the tentpole movie, you know, with a $400 million budget and advertising till the cows come home and all that. Is it not fair that everybody can't produce a $400 million movie? No, it's a matter of that's just the economics. What happens that I think is more powerful is the fact that the cost of the equipment is so much lower. Mm-hmm. I mean, an Avid editing system used to cost $1 kajillion, and now you can do essentially the same thing on a laptop Mac with a big hard drive. All of a sudden that enables a whole bunch of would-be filmmakers to articulate their vision. Then in video games, you have things like Unity. And so all of a sudden people can, where the figure of merit is who's creative, and that's the right place for it to be. And so the more times you can enable creative people to articulate their vision, the better off you are. And the big companies will not innovate. It's too risky.
One of the guys who designed the curriculum at the New York Film Academy of Los Angeles for the game world, he kept saying that, the big problem is scoping. All of them, everybody has said at some point, like, if your vision's too big, like, we're not going to be able to make it happen.
Oh, it's
your ability to navigate that reality is what allowed you to create Atari, yeah?
What everybody has to realize is that if they have a massive vision, they have to take baby steps to get the credibility and the understanding and the experience. I'm amazed sometimes in talking to would-be entrepreneurs at how naive they are about business. And I said, I wouldn't invest in your company, let alone let you run it in lemonade stand, because you've never run a lemonade stand.
Some of the people you talk to, it's clear that not only do they not have an awareness of that, but in some cases they kind of don't need it. This one gal that we were talking to, she wasn't an entrepreneur, she was an artist and a young student and everything. But at a certain point I said, well, what have you thought about your career, financially, what you're going to be, if you go take this track, it's going to put you in one place. And she kind of looked at me like, wow, maybe that is something I should have thought about. But no, I never really did think about that, Have you ever put on one of these things and been talking to somebody in Germany and in Indonesia while you're doing a first-person shooter? You know what I mean? Have you done that yet?
I have not.
No?
My kids all have. I play all over the world the game of Go, but it's all typing, it's not headsets.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But people meet and become friends, and some get married. It's a portal.
Oh yeah.
And it's a marketplace.
It's a synthetic world.
Did you see the beginnings of what it would become back in the day?
Yeah. I saw games as a very good forum for meeting people, because when you're in a bar, if you're just in a regular bar, then you walk up to somebody, some girl, and you say, can I buy you a drink? It's clearly you're looking for a connection. You say, let's play Pong together. It's a much softer relationship. And one of the things about Pong, the early days of Pong, it was heavily driven by the fact that it was only a two-player game. And so it became acceptable to ask anybody at the bar to come and play Pong with you. Girls were really empowered to go up and ask a guy, hey, I need somebody to play Pong with. Women have got it so much more figured out than we do every time. And so,
It's been my experience. So basically, you're the video game equivalent of Barry White.
Yeah. Well, or Pong is the equivalent to Tinder.
Yeah, oh, jeez. What do you think? Where are we going to be in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years? What's the community going to look like?
Well, I think that we will have an increasing amount of virtual reality and augmented reality. And augmented reality will take the form of being able to sit around a table and play Settlers of Catan, in which the construct is moving, the ocean is rippling, there are tractors and various things going on. And the people across the table from you can be anywhere, and you can see them.
FaceTime meets chess from Star Wars with a Wookiee.
And you will be able to see the background behind them so that you don't get motion sickness. I'm quite positive on augmented reality for gameplay. I think that virtual reality is going to be very powerful for the amusement park world, for the things where the experience is intense but short. I think that the long-form game on VR is going to be difficult. Interesting.
It's funny because that community will almost, it sounds to me, more closely resemble this type of in a space where you're talking to somebody. There's an anonymity about the way it works now, where you can just type in whatever and say what you want. And there's no repercussion. You can badmouth somebody, and
exactly.
So. But if you're looking at them,
well, but you'll still be sitting across from somebody, and sometimes it'll be them, sometimes it'll be their avatar. So that your wife will come in and look at the living room and it'll look like the bar scene of Star Wars.
He doesn't like you.
I'm sorry.
I don't like you either.
You have this passionate vision for where virtual reality and augmented reality are going to go. You're continuing to innovate because you've created the next iteration of Bushnell.
I've got 8 kids, and 5 of them are passionate about various things of technology. I mean, my oldest son, Brent, has 2-Bit Circus, where they are creating these immersive games using VR, AR, and physical constructs that will blow your mind. And I just love what he's doing. I'm so proud of him. My youngest son is doing a whole series of interesting games. Of course, his one goal in life is to beat his oldest brother. But that's normal family dynamics. I'm pretty happy with where my kids are.
Wow. One of the proudest moments I had with my dad, I was directing a short film, and I was doing it with my own money, people I could cobble together and things, and it was my vision. And I remember at one point I said, Dad, I have to spend money on it. If I don't spend this amount of money on it, it's not going to happen. And he's a very conservative guy. And I was just kind of out of ammo. And he said, well, Sean, he goes, what are you going to do with your money? Pile it up and throw darts at it? He goes, if you believe in this thing and you feel like you're going to end up with a product that you can be proud of, I was like, so you won't judge me for that? And he says, I'll judge you if you don't. So I went and invested in it. So I can just imagine. And there we were. I was on the set and I was talking about something and the camera was down here and everything else. And I looked up and he was almost standing with this ray of sunlight behind him, just beaming with pride at his son who had created this very temporary, 24-hour empire. but do you when you go watch your kids?
I get that with my kids, but it underscores one of my big disappointments is that my dad died when I was 15. I really regret not having him see my later success, because I just know what a good fun he would have had getting on my Learjet. He would have just thought that was the best thing in the world.
He would have been scared of it. You weren't flying the thing.
Oh, no. But, I think that we all want our dads to be proud of us.
I'm sure he was proud of you.
And we know that our mothers...
Would he have thought it was a gimmick? Would he have appreciated what the technology was? Was he one of those generations? He would.
Absolutely. And the thing that's different between dads and moms is we know that moms will always appreciate us no matter what we do. But dads, they're a little harder to sell.
You worked with these, aces that you found. You talk about jobs. The aces look different now, I think, or don't they? I mean,
no, they're the same. It's about passion. Today, the tools are there. You don't have to have any real experience. You don't have to have any real training. If you're passionate and you can pull passionate people into your vision, things happen. And that's the real power right now. And so the biggest problem we have today is kids who have turned off to life.
Yeah, what if I'm not passionate? Do I go sit in a corner? What happens if
I've been trying to figure out, can passion be rekindled? And I think it can, but I'm not sure you can do it in a mechanistic way. I know that passion can be snuffed, and I think that our current school system is doing a damn fine job of it. I guess to me, if I were to do some big research, I would find out how we can rekindle passion.
If somebody escapes into video games and there's a kind of a deadness to them, what if the passion that they are going to have in their life or can have isn't actually in the space of video games? Like that passion, you've continued your life after launching an entire universe, galaxy, finding other things. Is it okay? Because here's the one thing I know. No entrepreneur needs to hear too much from you. They can just see you and what you did, and they know that they're going to create the next billion-dollar idea. But what about somebody who is just watching the show and they don't know anything about video games, and you're the godfather of video games? Can they find passion somewhere else? Can they use video games in the short term? Well,
I think that it's a little bit like alcohol or drugs. You can use drugs to escape. You can use alcohol the same way. I think that video games, if it's a crutch and a drug, no. if it's escape. What you want to do is have action towards life as a way, real life, and away from back. And there's also a problem. Too much sitting is really bad for your health, and physical activity gives you endorphins and keeps your brain stimulated. And if there is one problem with video games, it's too much sitting. So we should do video games only allowed when you're on a treadmill.
I like it. I was going to say, if you do exercise, can you twitch later in life? You know what I mean?
Well, I wear one of these things.
Oh, yeah?
And every hour it tells me to get up and run around.
Do you listen to it?
I absolutely do.
How many steps a day?
I try to do 10,000 a day.
You'd want consumers of your games to play them so much, but not to the detriment of their physical health. You want them to be...
No, I don't want them to play a lot. I want them to play just enough. My rule for my kids is they can play an hour and a half to 2 hours a day after school.
That's a lot, isn't it?
Well,
not for people who love video games. That's like nothing for people who love video games. But in the grand scheme...
And then they could do 6 to 8 hours each day on the weekend. I think more than 2 hours a day for kids who are in school is wrong.